even though it is a lot of breeze, whatever's comfortable for you. Yeah, they just push them in. There you go. But again, if you want air, just tell me. Now, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna talk to everybody. Okay, I'm gonna just explain things as we're going through the island of Bermuda, and you can feel free to ask questions also. Okay. Once again, we'll make a few stops here and there. And we're going to get you from one end of the island to the other. We'll be back here in time. Plenty of time for the ship that's leaving, okay?
Thank you.
Great, it's 10 o'clock now. So Bermuda runs east to west. We're in the western end of the island. Just for a minute, if you look to the right, see the building high up on the hill to the right? Right up on the hill to the right is called the Commissioner's House. And the Commissioner's House is the first building to be built in this area we call the dockyard. Sits inside of what we call the keep yard, and it has a cast iron frame around it, and so it's one of the oldest cast iron frame buildings in the world, and it is the first structure to be built in this area that we call the dockyard, and that's why I'm pointing it out. Okay, the dockyard is an old British Navy fortification, and they began to build all of this area up way back in about 1820, and one of the primary reasons behind building up the dockyard area was simply because the British had lost the Revolutionary War, and then as the War of 1812 was approaching, they were of course not friendly with the Americans, and they needed somewhere to protect their trade from Bermuda between Canada and the islands. And so Bermuda was the ideal place, and so they started to build up all of this area in the 1800s. And these, as we're coming out, we could see all of these original buildings are the main foundation of the island of Bermuda, and it's something we call limestone rock. They started to build all of this area with slaves. Then they brought convicts from the UK, and it took about 40 years to build up all of these structures. And as we look in front of us, you can see the stone. This is a coral limestone rock, and we call it Walsingham rock. The entire island of Bermuda, the foundation is limestone. 10% is a very hard rock called Walsingham rock, and that's the rock that's all in this shipyard. And they chiseled it out, blasted it out, and cut it, whatever they needed to do to get it out, and built all up this area that we call the dockyard today. Okay, today they have a main municipality called Vetco, and they are the main people that controls all of this area today that we call the dockyard. Bermuda hosts the America's Cup 2017 yacht race, and it was held up here in the dockyard, was the main headquarters. And if we just look up to the right, just up here, you can see a model of what that boat would have looked like. Just sitting up here to the right. That's Oracle, and Oracle, of course, is Larry Ellison. And this is just what the yachts would have looked like. And again, this just sits here historically, okay? And as we're coming out of the shipyard, look high up on the hill to the right, you'll see another building up here. And this is the second oldest structure to be built in the dockyard, and we call it the Casemates Building. And the Casemates Building was used as a hostel for the infantry that oversaw this area, and the roof was built for bomb-proof. It's 8 feet thick, and then years later, this building became a maximum security prison. Today, they're just turning it into a historical edifice, mainly because of its architectural value. As we're coming out of the shipyard, and you look to the left, all to the left of us was the main headquarters for the America's Cup 2017 yacht race. And Bermuda spent over $70 million revolutionizing the area in preparation for the America's Cup. Many of the buildings have been torn down now. And as you come out there, if you look out, you can see the island that's out there. For the America's Cup. All the houses, the seating yacht race took place just out here to the left of what we call the Great Sound. Bermuda is probably best described as an archipelago, and that's because it is basically 5 main islands bridged together by bridges. And so right now, where your cruise ship is, we're on an island, we call it Island, and we're gonna cross this little bridge right here in front of us, and that'll take us into Bowes Island, and then we go into Watford Island, and into Somerset Island. And so again, Bermuda is 5 main islands bridged together by bridges, but then there is basically 180 islands that makes up the island of Bermuda, and that includes every little rock and islet. Okay, and so it's very simplistic to get about. Once again, the island runs east to west, and typically there are 4 main roads that run throughout the island of Bermuda. The middle road, which is the road that we're on right now, if we were to just stay on this road, it would take us all the way into our capital, which is Hamilton. So we have the middle road, the harbor road, the North Shore road, the South road. You'll get on all of those roads. And as we come out here, you can see these houses to the right. They are what we call row houses. And the row houses were built in the 1800s for the staff and the dockyard. And today they're dilapidated, and they're looking for investors to restore all of these buildings. As we come out here, and if you just pause to the left for a minute, this is a War Commonwealth Cemetery, and called the Royal Navy Cemetery. And as they were building up the dockyard, as the convicts were dying off, this is where they buried them to. In the island of Bermuda between 1820 and 1860, Bermuda had 3 yellow fever epidemics. All of this began to fill up, and from that time when they categorized who could be buried, the only British Royal Navy personnel has been buried there ever since. Okay, so it's what we call a War Commonwealth Cemetery. And as we get out farther, you'll see the traditional Bermuda cemeteries that stand out in distinction from the War Cemetery. All of the Bay of Water to the right, we call this Black Bay. And these are just little public beaches. And of course, in the summertime, Bermuda get very hot, it get very humid. And so these are just areas where people can come and swim to. But on this tour, you're going to see also the major beaches, which are far cry from these. Bermuda, geographically speaking, we sit in the middle of the Atlantic. We have nothing to do with the Caribbean Ocean. The Gulf current comes around the island of Bermuda, and so basically our water temperatures is about 70 degrees all year round, and then when you get into the summertime it warms up. And the basic temperatures for the weather in the months of December and January and February, it'll fluctuate between 60 degrees and 70 degrees, and then when we get into the summertime it gets into the high 80s. So it can get very humid in the summertime, but we also get a nice ocean breeze that flows throughout the island of Bermuda. Our closest point of origin is North Carolina. We're just under 600 miles from Cape Hatteras, and Bermuda is about 3,400 miles from London. And the closest Caribbean island is Nassau, Bahamas. We're about 800 miles from the Bahamas. So again, we sit in the middle of the Atlantic. Bermuda is 21 miles long, and we are 3 miles at our widest point. And on average, as we go throughout the island of Bermuda, Bermuda is about 1.5 miles wide. And it is divided into 9 sections, and we call them parishes. And so right now, we're in a parish, and we call it Sandys. And all of the parishes have nicknames, so we call this Somerset. And as we're traveling throughout the island, as we go from parish to parish, and I'll tell you a little bit about each parish as we go through them. For us in the island of Bermuda, the population is just over 65,000. And then we have an additional maybe 8,000 to 10,000 people that are working in the island of Bermuda on what we call work permits. And there are 4 primary areas of employment. Number 1 in the island of Bermuda would be the international companies, underwriting insurance companies. Number 2 would be banking, and then of course tourism, and then of course finally working in the government, whether in the main administration or the various branches. The unemployment rate for Bermuda has always been at about 3%, and during the economic downturn, because we rely closely on the United States, it went up to 9%, and now we're just under 6% and dropping once again. Remember, that we're in a parish called Sandys, and the nickname is Somerset. So we're coming through a little town or a little village, and we call it Somerset Village. So this little town, of course, the people that live in Somerset, they can do the minor banking and shopping and stuff like that. But anything major, they were going to the city of Hamilton, which is the capital. And we're going to go through the city of Hamilton. And for those that need to stop for a bit, we'll stop into the city. For Bermuda, Bermuda's known for its fauna and flora. All of the flowers come out, especially in the summertime. It gets very colorful. All the beautiful
trees?
flowers. The big, which ones?
Like the work trunk trees.
Mm-hmm.
The trees that are all like worked and stuff. What kind of trees?
You probably had to show it to me again because there were a couple of trees. I don't know if you're talking about the big one like that.
Yeah.
That's the cedar. We have 17 plants in Bermuda that are endemic to Bermuda only. And so we have the Bermuda cedar. You can see it again here, but you just don't see the leaves wrapped around it. So these are the big juniper cedar trees. We have 17 plants in Bermuda. We call them endemic plants. And juniper cedar is endemic to Bermuda. That simply means that they were found there hundreds of years ago. They have their own species, and you don't find that species of plant anywhere else in the world but in the island of Bermuda. So there are 17, and we call them endemic plants. Okay? Bermuda cedar played a major role in the building up of the island of Bermuda, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. As we look to the left, this is a plantation called Springfield. The house was built in the 1700s, and it's built out of the limestone rock, not the hard rock that's in the dockyard, but the softer texture of limestone. And you could look right in front of the car where you could see the softer texture of the blocks just in front of us. This is coral limestone rock right here. And as you look up, you could see some of the palm trees. Look to the right, the ones with the rustic leaves on it, and that's also endemic plants. We call them palmetto palms, and the back years going by, the slaves would eat the berries of the palm trees, dig within the palm tree, they take the hearts of palm out, and they will cook it. It was said to taste like cabbage, and then they'll bleach the leaves out and make fishing line, ropes, and mats and hats. And today we have a Bermudian woman, her name is Ronnie Shamu, and she does the remaking from the 17th century, 18th century, 19th century. She does hats, she does something called banana dolls on the banana leaves. Her work is very unique. She's on Bermuda stamps. Smithsonian has some of her work, the Queen, Oprah Winfrey. And so if you have any time, when we get back, go to the Craft Center, and you can see the work of Ronnie Shamu. See the sign right here says the Bermuda National Trust. The Bermuda National Trust is an organization of about 3,500 strong. They're a group of conservationists that preserve all the natural architect in the island of Bermuda and all the historical buildings. So whenever you see that sign for the National Trust, it just implies that they retain all our historical buildings. As we look around us, and you can see all the pastel colors. Typically, you can paint your house any color you want, anytime you want, and we don't have any laws against what color you paint your house. You can notice just to the left here, a myriad of different colors. And if you could look, you could see that this building right here is built out of Bermuda concrete block, but the roofs are made out of stone. So from the 1600s, 1700s, the 1900s, about 1970s, all the houses were made out of limestone, and then they began to build the houses out of concrete block because it was cheap. But the roofs are still made out of concrete block, and as we go through the island, every house has a water tank on the bottom of the house, and on top of the roof we collect rainwater, so we depend largely on rainwater. We got about 58 inches of rain a year, and when you get an opportunity, you look on top of the roofs, you're going to see little ridges running around these roofs where we collect our rainwater.
I don't want to go in there.
And the in the island of Bermuda, in every parish, we have fundamental parish churches, and the fundamental religion is Anglican, okay? So this is a fundamental parish church. This is St. James. St. James was built in the 1700s, completed in the 1800s, and it's what we call a Gothic architectural work. All of the front is neoclassical, and you're looking at the traditional Bermuda cemetery plot, and that's what I wanted to show you. And when we see another one, we're going to stop somewhere else where you got a better perspective of the cemetery plots, but we call them shaft cemetery plots. And we call them shaft cemetery plots because they're 6 feet long, 3 feet wide, and they go deep into the earth like a shaft. So we call them shaft cemetery plots and the family plots, okay? For the island of Bermuda, we have a rule of law. If you bury someone in the shaft cemetery plot, you can't put another person in the same plot until a year and a day is up.
Yep.
And because the coffins are made out of wood and the coral limestone is very porous, these coffins have a tendency to deteriorate over many, many years. We will go inside the shaft cemetery plots, take out all the rotted pieces, crushing in the fine pieces, and just make room for the newly buried. Okay, so they're designed to last for hundreds of years. For us in Bermuda, we have a myriad of different religious beliefs. So you're going to find Protestant, Catholic, Presbyterian, non-denomination. You even find Jewish synagogue, Latter-day Saints, myriad of different religious beliefs. As we just slow down just for a few minutes right here, look to the right. You see a beautiful little bay here. We call this Ely's Harbor. All of the boats that you see are privately owned, and all those are the moorings, and it's like having a spot of land on water, okay? And over the process of time, they increase in value, and you could sell those spots if you don't want them anymore. If you look to the left, you could see a private residence built in the 1700s. That's seafood, built out of Bermuda stone, and all on the inside would be Bermuda cedar. Again, built in the 1700s, and a traditional Bermuda house, probably valued over $5 million, sitting on the water edge. You probably remember the Mott's applesauce family, Mott's apple juice. The Mott's family have had property in the island of Bermuda going back to the early 1900s. And the head of that family was a man named Stuart Mott's. And as we come to the top of the hill, their property is going to come up on the left side of us. Oh, okay. Well, this is all of their property right here. It's called parapet. The name parapet means a low wall. As you go down the hill, if you look up, you can sort of get the gist of the estate. Just look up the hill if you can. And so it's right in the estate. The property goes all the way over to the water edge. It's 9 acres of property. They have 2 big deep boat docks. And so that's the Mott family. The head of that family passed away about 5 years ago, and the siblings have had it up for sale. We're going to make a stop for a few minutes at the smallest drawbridge in the world, okay? And that's coming up any minute. We'll step out for a few minutes. We're back. Let's just back up here. A minute. How's everybody?
Good.
Great. So let's take a few minutes out. We can step out.